The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and butter, the way it had every December since Dorothy Ford moved into this house 42 years ago. She stood at her worn Formica counter, rolling out sugar cookie dough with the same wooden pin Thomas had given her their first Christmas together. Outside the window, Iowa snow fell in lazy spirals, coating Cedar Falls in white silence. Dorothy was humming Silent Night when she heard the car in the driveway. She glanced at the clock, 2:47 p.m. Rebecca wasn't supposed to visit until tomorrow. The back door opened, bringing a gust of cold air and her youngest daughter, arms laden with shopping bags from stores Dorothy recognized but could never afford. "Mom!" Rebecca's smile was bright, almost too bright. "I know I'm early, but I couldn't wait. I found the most perfect gifts for the church charity drive." Dorothy wiped flour from her hands, studying her daughter. Rebecca looked good, hair freshly highlighted, makeup carefully applied, wearing a wool coat that must have cost more than Dorothy's monthly grocery budget. For someone who'd been crying poverty since her divorce 2 years ago, her daughter looked remarkably prosperous. "That's thoughtful, honey," Dorothy said, pushing aside the observation. "Want some coffee? I just made a fresh pot." "Yes, please." Rebecca set the bags down and shed her coat. That's when Dorothy noticed her daughter's hands trembling slightly as she checked her phone. Once, twice, 3 times in 30 seconds. "Everything okay?" Rebecca's head snapped up. "What?" "Oh yes, just work emails. You know how it is." She laughed, but the sound was hollow. "Actually, I was hoping we could bake together, like we used to when I was little. Remember?" Dorothy remembered. Rebecca at 7, perched on a step stool, sneaking raw cookie dough when she thought no one was looking. Rebecca at 12, meticulously decorating gingerbread men with fierce concentration. Rebecca at 16, rolling her eyes but still showing up every year, her tough teenage exterior cracking just enough to let her mother see the child underneath. "I'd love that," Dorothy said softly. They fell into the old rhythm, Dorothy rolling, Rebecca cutting shapes with cookie cutters that had belonged to Thomas's mother. For 20 minutes, the kitchen held only comfortable sounds, the radio playing carols, the scrape of spatulas, the tick of the oven timer. Then Rebecca's phone buzzed, and buzzed again, and again. Each time her daughter flinched like she'd been slapped. "Rebecca! Mom!" Her daughter's voice cut through the warm air like a blade. "You know I'd do anything for Lily, right?" Dorothy's hand stilled on the rolling pin. There it was, that tone. The one that had preceded every request, every emergency, every check Dorothy had written over the past 6 months. "Of course, honey. You're a good mother." "I try to be." Rebecca placed a star-shaped cookie on the baking sheet with exaggerated care. "It's just so hard doing it alone. The bills, the pressure, making sure she has everything she needs for college applications next year." Her phone buzzed again. This time Rebecca grabbed it, read the message, and her face went pale. She typed something furiously, then set the phone face down on the counter. "Is someone bothering you?" Dorothy asked gently. "No, just, you know how it is. Modern life." Rebecca's smile returned, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey, remember when Dad used to let me lick the beaters?" The subject change was deliberate, clumsy. Dorothy let it happen, but something cold had settled in her chest. The same instinct that had warned her when Marcus was sneaking out at 15, when Daniel was hiding failing grades in 8th grade. The instinct that told her something was very wrong. They finished the cookies, chatting about surface things. Lily's school play, the weather forecast, the church Christmas pageant. All the while, Dorothy watched her daughter's eyes, darting to the phone, to the clock, to the shopping bags in the corner. When Rebecca finally left at 4:30, she hugged Dorothy tight. Too tight. "Love you, Mom. More than anything." "Love you too, sweetheart." Dorothy stood at the window watching Rebecca's Honda Civic disappear into the snowy afternoon. The shopping bags sat on the counter, abandoned. Curious, Dorothy peeked inside. Designer purses, expensive perfume, cashmere scarves. Nothing appropriate for the church charity drive, which served families who needed coats and socks, not luxury items. Dorothy's stomach twisted. She pulled out her phone and opened Facebook, something she rarely did, but Helen Patterson had convinced her to join last year. She typed Rebecca Ford into the search bar. Her daughter's page appeared, set to public. The most recent post, from 3 days ago, a photo of Rebecca at Giovanni's, Cedar Falls' most expensive restaurant. Champagne glass raised, surrounded by laughing friends. The caption read, "Treating myself because I deserve it." The post had 43 likes. Dorothy closed her eyes and leaned against the counter. The cookies cooling on the rack suddenly smelled too sweet, cloying. The phone call came 3 nights later at 11:17 p.m. Dorothy had been asleep for almost 2 hours, dreaming of Thomas, one of those vivid dreams where he felt so real she could smell his Old Spice cologne. The ringtone jolted her awake, and for a disoriented moment, she thought it might be the hospital, thought something had happened to one of the boys. "Hello?" Her voice was rough with sleep. "Mom, thank God you answered." Rebecca sounded breathless, panicked. "I'm so sorry to call this late, but I need your help." Dorothy sat up, fumbling for the bedside lamp. "What's wrong? Is Lily okay?" "She's fine. She's asleep. It's just, Mom, I need to borrow some money. $800. It's Lily's orthodontist. They're threatening to cancel her next appointment unless I pay the balance. And her teeth, you know how important this is for her self-esteem. Wait, slow down." Dorothy's brain was struggling to catch up. "The orthodontist? I thought your insurance covered that." "It does, but there's a deductible. And with Christmas and everything, I'm just a little short right now. I'll pay you back as soon as my next paycheck comes through. 2 weeks tops." Dorothy reached for her glasses, putting them on as if they might help her see the truth more clearly. "Rebecca, this is the 3rd time this month you've asked for money." Silence on the other end, then cold as January wind. "Are you saying no?" "I'm not. I'm just trying to understand. Last week it was $600 for the car repair. The week before, $400 for Lily's winter clothes. And now—" "You don't trust me." Rebecca's voice shifted, wounded. "After everything I do for Lily, working 2 jobs, sacrificing everything, you think I'm lying?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to. I can hear it in your voice." A beat of silence. "You know what? Forget it. I'll figure it out myself, like I always do. Alone." "Rebecca, wait!" But the damage was done. The guilt deployed like a precision weapon. Dorothy could practically hear Thomas in her head. "Don't let her manipulate you, Pam. Stand firm." But Thomas wasn't here, and Lily needed her grandmother. "I'll write you a check," Dorothy heard herself say. "Come by tomorrow." Rebecca's tone transformed instantly, sugar-sweet. "Oh, Mom, thank you so much. You're literally saving us. I don't know what I'd do without you. Lily's going to be so relieved." After they hung up, Dorothy sat in the dark for a long time, staring at the framed wedding photo on her nightstand. Thomas smiled back at her, frozen at 32, still believing in forever. "I'm being stupid, aren't I?" she whispered to the photograph. The next morning, Dorothy did something she'd never done before. She opened her computer, the one Marcus had set up for her last year, and logged into her bank account. She pulled up her transaction history for the past 2 months. November 28th, check numbered 1847 to Rebecca Ford, $600, car repair. November 15th, check numbered 1844 to Rebecca Ford, $400, Lily's clothes. November 3rd, check numbered 1841 to Rebecca Ford, $500, emergency rent. October 19th, check numbered 1838 to Rebecca Ford, $800, utility bill. October 7th, check in 1835 to Rebecca Ford, $900, Lily's school expenses. Dorothy's hands shook as she totaled the numbers in the margin of her checkbook. $3,200 in 6 weeks. Her monthly income was $2,000, Social Security and a small pension from her 40 years as a school cafeteria manager. After mortgage, utilities, insurance, and medication for her blood pressure, she had roughly $300 for food and gas. She'd been giving Rebecca more than she could afford, and she hadn't even noticed because she'd been pulling from the savings Thomas had left her, the emergency fund, the nest egg that was supposed to last her through retirement. Dorothy's chest felt tight. She closed the computer and sat very still, trying to breathe. Then she opened Facebook again. Rebecca's page loaded. Dorothy scrolled through the recent posts, seeing her daughter's life through a stranger's eyes. December 15th, photo at Giovanni's, Champaign. December 10, new designer handbag still with tags. Early Christmas present to myself. December 3rd, weekend trip to Des Moines. Much needed girl time. November 28th. The same day Dorothy had written a check for car repair, Rebecca had posted photos from a concert. Front row seats. The pattern clicked into place with sickening clarity. Dorothy stood up, walked to the bathroom, and threw up. December 23rd arrived cold and clear, the kind of Iowa winter day that made everything look like a Christmas card. Dorothy had spent the morning wrapping presents for Lily, modest things she could actually afford. A journal with a leather cover from the Target clearance rack. Warm socks. A $25 Barnes & Noble gift card. She was tying ribbon on the last package when she heard a car door slam with more force than necessary. Through the window, she saw Rebecca and Lily walking up the path. Rebecca's expression was set, determined. Lily trailed behind, her face pale, eyes red like she'd been crying. Dorothy's stomach dropped. She opened the door before they could knock. "Hi, sweetheart, I wasn't expecting— We need to talk." Rebecca pushed past her into the living room, Lily following like a ghost. "Sit down, Mom." Dorothy remained standing. "What's going on?" Rebecca positioned herself in the center of the room like a lawyer addressing a jury. Lily stood by the door, clutching her backpack, looking everywhere except at her grandmother. "Lily's been accepted into the community college's early enrollment program for next fall," Rebecca announced. "It's a huge opportunity, but she needs reliable transportation." Pride flickered through Dorothy's worry. "That's wonderful. Lily, congratulations. She needs a car," Rebecca continued, steamrolling over her. "A reliable one, not some piece of junk that'll break down on the highway. I've done the research. A certified pre-owned Honda Accord, good safety ratings, around 18,000. The number hung in the air like a grenade. Dorothy's mouth went dry. "Rebecca, I can't— You can." Rebecca's voice hardened. "You could take out a home equity loan. This house has been paid off for years. Other grandmothers help their grandchildren. Normal grandmothers want to see them succeed." "My entire monthly income is $2,000, Dorothy said, hating how her voice shook. "After expenses, I have almost nothing left. A car loan would— Would what? Inconvenience you?" Rebecca stepped closer. "Let me tell you about inconvenience, Mom. Try being a single mother, working 2 jobs, trying to give your daughter a future. Try watching other kids get help from their families while yours gets nothing. I've given you over $3,000 in the past 6 weeks alone. For emergencies, for necessities, not for luxuries." Rebecca's face flushed. "Lily deserves this. She's worked so hard. Are you really going to crush her dreams because you're too selfish to help?" Dorothy looked at her granddaughter. "Lily, is this what you want?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at her mother, then at the floor. "Don't put her in the middle of this," Rebecca snapped. "This is between you and me." "Everything's about you, isn't it?" The words escaped before Dorothy could stop them. "Your needs, your emergencies, your demands. I'm asking you to help your granddaughter. You're asking me to bankrupt myself." Dorothy's voice rose for the first time. "I'm 68 years old, living on a fixed income. I have nothing left to give you, Rebecca." The silence that followed was arctic. Rebecca's expression transformed, hurt melting into something cold and calculating. "Fine, I understand perfectly. You care more about your precious savings than your own family." "That's not fair." "Here's what's fair." Rebecca's voice dropped to a whisper, sharp as broken glass. "If you don't help us, if you don't find a way to make this happen, then don't bother coming to our house for Christmas tomorrow. We don't need people in our lives who turn their backs when it matters." Dorothy felt like she'd been punched. "You can't mean that." "I absolutely mean it. You want to choose money over your granddaughter? Fine. But make the choice and live with it. Rebecca grabbed Lily's arm. Come on, honey. We're done here. Wait. Dorothy reached out, but Lily wouldn't look at her. As they walked to the car, Dorothy stood frozen in her doorway. The December wind cut through her cardigan, but she barely felt it. Rebecca paused at the car, turned back. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Buy the car, or we're done. Your choice. The car pulled away. Dorothy watched until the taillights disappeared around the corner, her heart hammering against her ribs. Then she closed the door and stood alone in her living room, the same room where she and Thomas had celebrated 42 Christmases, where her children had opened presents and laughed and fought and grown up. The Christmas tree lights blinked cheerfully in the corner, mocking her. Dorothy walked to the couch and sat down very carefully, like her bones might shatter. Her purse sat on the coffee table. She pulled out her wallet and removed the photograph she kept there. Thomas on their wedding day, young and strong and sure. What do I do? She whispered to the photograph. What would you do? But Thomas was gone, and Dorothy was alone, and her daughter had just held Christmas hostage for the price of a car she couldn't afford. The thing that hurt most wasn't the money. It was the look on Lily's face. Trapped, miserable, unable to speak. Dorothy had seen that look before, in her own mirror, during the years when Thomas's drinking had been bad. The look of someone caught between love and fear, loyalty and self-preservation. Her granddaughter was trapped, and Dorothy had no idea how to save her. Christmas Eve arrived wrapped in silence. Dorothy woke at 2:17 a.m., her heart racing from a dream she couldn't quite remember. She lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house creak and settle around her. Sleep was impossible. She gave up trying. In her bathrobe and slippers, she padded downstairs to the kitchen and made tea. Not because she wanted it, but because the ritual gave her hands something to do. While the water boiled, she found herself standing in front of the bookshelf in the living room, running her fingers along the spines of old photo albums. She pulled out the one from 1983, Rebecca's birth year. Dorothy carried it to the couch, wrapped herself in Thomas's old Afghan, the one that still smelled faintly of him if she pressed it to her face, and opened the album. There was baby Rebecca, wrapped in a pink hospital blanket, her tiny face scrunched and furious at the world. Rebecca at 6 months, laughing at something off camera. Rebecca at 2, covered in chocolate cake at her birthday party. Rebecca at 5, missing her front teeth, grinning proudly on her first day of kindergarten. Page after page of a life Dorothy had poured herself into. This bright, demanding, difficult, beloved child. When had it changed? When had love become a transaction? Dorothy turned to a photo from Rebecca's 8th birthday. The entire family was there. Thomas with his arm around Dorothy, Marcus and Daniel making faces at the camera, and Rebecca in the center, holding a new bike, her smile radiant with joy. She remembered that day. Remembered Thomas spending hours assembling that bike in the garage, checking and rechecking every bolt. Remembered Rebecca's shriek of delight when she saw it. Remembered her daughter throwing her arms around both of them, saying, "You're the best parents in the whole world." When had I love you become what can you give me? Dorothy's vision blurred. She wiped her eyes and kept turning pages. Rebecca at 12, sullen and angry after Thomas had grounded her for shoplifting lipstick from Walgreens. Rebecca at 15, radiant in her homecoming dress. Rebecca at 17, holding her high school diploma. And then, tucked between pages, an envelope Dorothy had forgotten about. Her name was written on the front in Thomas's careful handwriting. Her hands shook as she opened it. Dearest Dorothy, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry I can't be there to help you through whatever you're facing. But I know you, and I know you're probably beating yourself up about something, probably blaming yourself for something that isn't your fault. I need to tell you something about Rebecca that I never said out loud while I was alive. I was afraid to. Afraid you'd think I was being too hard on our girl. Rebecca has always needed external validation more than the boys. She measures her worth by what she can get, what she can achieve, what she can show off. I saw it when she was little, the way she'd compare her Christmas presents to her brothers. The way she'd cry if someone else got more attention. I thought she'd outgrow it. Maybe I was wrong. If she's struggling, if she's asking for things in ways that hurt you, remember this. You cannot fill a hole in someone's soul by emptying your own. You taught me that when I was drinking. You loved me, but you didn't enable me. You set boundaries that saved my life. Do the same for Rebecca, not because you don't love her, but because you do. And watch over Lily. That girl's going to need someone to show her that love doesn't have to hurt. I love you, Pam. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Always. Thomas Dorothy pressed the letter to her chest and sobbed, deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place she'd kept locked since Thomas died. He'd known. All along, he'd known this day would come. When the tears finally stopped, Dorothy felt something shift inside her. Not hardness exactly. Clarity. Thomas had called her Pam, a nickname only he used, short for Pamela, her middle name. He'd written this knowing she'd need his voice when he couldn't be there to speak it. She looked at the clock. 3:47 a.m. Dorothy stood up, Thomas's letter still clutched in her hand, and walked to the kitchen. She opened the drawer where she kept her checkbook and pulled out the bank statements she'd been avoiding. Time to see the full picture. By the time the sun rose on Christmas morning, Dorothy had a complete ledger spread across her kitchen table. 2 years of checks, withdrawals, loans that were never repaid. The total made her nauseated. 14,500. She'd given Rebecca 14,500 in 2 years while living on 24,000ers annually. Dorothy made coffee, real coffee this time, strong and black, and picked up her phone. She scrolled to Rebecca's Facebook page again, this time methodically taking screenshots of every post that showed luxury spending, every photo that contradicted the stories of poverty. December 15th, Giovanni's restaurant. The same week, Rebecca had claimed she couldn't afford Lily's winter coat. November 28th, concert tickets, the day of the car repair emergency. October 19th, designer handbag, 3 days after the utility bill crisis. The pattern was damning, undeniable, but the worst discovery came when Dorothy accidentally clicked on a tagged photo from someone named Prairie Meadows Casino and Resort. It was Rebecca, dated 3 weeks ago, sitting at a blackjack table, chips stacked in front of her, grinning at the camera. The caption, "Feeling lucky." The comments below were telling. "Girl, you're here every weekend. When's your next big win? Don't spend it all in one place, Lilel." Dorothy's hand trembled as she set down the phone. Not just entitlement, not just manipulation, gambling. Rebecca had a gambling problem, and she'd been using Dorothy, using Lily, to feed it. Dorothy didn't go to Marcus and Daniel's for Christmas. She called them both, claimed she had a stomach bug, and spent the day alone with her evidence and her grief. But on December 26th, she made 3 phone calls that would change everything. The first was to Marcus. "Mom, are you feeling better?" Her eldest son's voice was warm with concern. "I tried to stop by yesterday, but you didn't answer. Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." Dorothy took a breath. "Has Rebecca asked you for money recently?" Silence, then, "Why do you ask?" "Please, just answer." "Yeah," Marcus sighed. "Last month. $2,000. Said it was for Lily's school trip to Washington, D.C. I told her no. We're trying to save for Emma's college, and I'd already lent her $500 in September that she never paid back." Dorothy closed her eyes. "What did she say when you refused?" "Got angry. Said I was choosing my stepdaughter over my own niece. Told me I'd regret it when Lily remembered who was there for her and who wasn't." He paused. "Mom, what's going on?" Dorothy told him everything. The ultimatum, the $14,500, the casino photos. When she finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Jesus Christ. Mom, I'm coming home this weekend. Don't do anything until I get there, okay? I need to handle this myself." "You don't have to handle it alone." The second call was to Daniel in Arizona. Her middle son listened to the same story, then said flatly, "She tried the same thing with me in October. $1,000 for Lily's medical emergency. I asked what kind of emergency, and she got vague, so I said no. She didn't speak to me for 3 weeks. Why didn't you tell me? I thought it was just me. I thought I was being paranoid. Daniel's voice hardened. That manipulative little, sorry, Mom, but this is financial abuse. You know that, right? I'm starting to understand that. Yes. The third call was to Helen Patterson. Her best friend of 40 years answered on the second ring. Dorothy! Merry belated Christmas! I missed you yesterday. Helen, I need to ask you something. Have you seen Rebecca at Prairie Meadows? The pause told her everything before Helen spoke. Oh, honey. Helen's voice dropped. I didn't want to tell you because I wasn't sure if you knew, and I didn't want to cause trouble. But yes, I've seen her there 3 times in the past month. She's usually at the blackjack tables with a group of people I don't recognize. Dorothy gripped the phone tighter. What does she look like when she's there? What do you mean? Is she happy? Sad? What? Helen considered. Desperate. She looks desperate, Dorothy, like she's chasing something she can't catch. After they hung up, Dorothy sat at her kitchen table and stared at her evidence. The spreadsheet of payments, the Facebook screenshots, the casino photos. She needed professional help. At 9 a.m. on December 27th, Dorothy walked into Cedar Falls Community Bank, where she'd held accounts for 37 years. She asked to speak with the manager. Sharon Miller was a woman in her 50s who'd helped Dorothy refinance her mortgage after Thomas died. She greeted Dorothy with a warm smile that faded when she saw her expression. Mrs. Ford, what's wrong? I need to make some changes to my accounts, and I need your help with something that might be difficult. They sat in Sharon's office, and Dorothy laid out everything. The forged signature attempt came up when Sharon pulled Dorothy's account history. Mrs. Ford. Sharon's face went pale. On December 10th, a woman claiming to be you, but it was your daughter, I recognize her from her driver's license, came in with power of attorney paperwork. She said you'd become forgetful and needed help managing your finances. Dorothy's stomach turned to ice. I never signed any power of attorney. I know. That's why I refused to process it. Sharon pulled a file from her desk. The signature looked wrong. The pressure was different. The letter formation was off. I made a note in your file and told her we'd need to verify with you directly. She got angry and left. Sharon slid a photocopy across the desk. Dorothy stared at her own name, written in handwriting that looked nothing like hers. The loops were wrong. The slant was wrong. It was a forgery, and not even a good one. Why didn't you call me? I was going to after the holidays. I thought... Sharon's expression was pained. Mrs. Ford, this is elder financial abuse. Your daughter attempted to commit fraud. You could press charges. Dorothy's hands shook as she held the photocopy. Rebecca had tried to forge legal documents to access her bank accounts. Had convinced a therapist or mediator, or whatever those people were, to help her manipulate Dorothy into signing over financial control. This wasn't a daughter struggling with money problems. This was predatory. I need to protect myself, Dorothy heard herself say. Tell me what to do. By the time she left the bank 2 hours later, Dorothy had new account numbers Rebecca didn't know, new passwords and security questions, a fraud alert on all accounts, a notarized transaction history showing every payment to Rebecca for 2 years, an official report documenting the forgery attempt, the business card for Tom Henderson, the bank's fraud prevention specialist. Tom had pulled her aside before she left. Mrs. Ford, what your daughter attempted is a crime. If you decide to pursue legal action, we have everything documented. Security footage, the forged document, my witness statement. I need to think about it. I understand, but I want you to know you're not alone in this. I see cases like yours more often than you'd think. Adult children exploiting elderly parents. It's insidious because the victims love the people hurting them. Dorothy drove home in a daze. She'd gone to the bank thinking she'd just close an account. Instead, she'd discovered her daughter had tried to commit fraud against her. At home, she spread everything across her dining room table. Bank statements, Facebook screenshots, the forged power of attorney, witness statements from Marcus, Daniel, and Helen, the casino photos. It looked like a police investigation. because that's what it was. Dorothy picked up her phone and searched. Elder law attorney, Cedar Falls, Iowa. The knock on Dorothy's door came on January 3rd at 3:47 p.m. She wasn't expecting anyone. Marcus had gone back to Minnesota. Daniel was back in Arizona. Helen was at her book club. Dorothy looked through the peephole and saw Lily standing on her porch, alone, backpack slung over one shoulder, her face pale and frightened. Dorothy yanked the door open. "Lily, what are you doing here? Does your mother know?" "No." Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "She thinks I'm at Jennifer's house studying. Can I come in? Please?" Dorothy pulled her inside, glancing up and down the street to make sure Rebecca's car wasn't lurking somewhere. "Are you okay? What happened?" Lily stood in the living room, clutching her backpack like a life preserver. She was crying, silent tears that tracked down her cheeks without sound. "Baby, sit down. Let me get you some water. I need to show you something." Lily's hands shook as she unzipped her backpack and pulled out a spiral notebook, the kind students used for class notes. "I've been keeping this since last summer. I didn't know who else to show it to, but after Christmas, after what Mom did to you, I realized I can't keep protecting her." She held out the notebook. Dorothy took it carefully, like it might explode. The cover was decorated with Lily's neat handwriting. Journal. Private. "You want me to read this?" Lily nodded, fresh tears spilling. "All of it. Every entry. Because I need someone to know the truth, and you're the only person who might actually believe me." Dorothy sat on the couch. Lily curled into the armchair across from her, hugging her knees to her chest. Dorothy opened the notebook. June 15th, 2024, Mom took my babysitting money again. 340s that I earned watching the Kowalski twins every weekend for 2 months. She said I owed her for food and housing. When I tried to say no, she cried and said I was selfish like Grandma. I gave her the money. I always give her the money. Dorothy's throat tightened. July 3rd, 2024, Mom spent 4 hours on the phone with Grandma tonight. I could hear her through the wall. She was crying, saying we might lose the apartment, that the electric company was going to shut off our power. Then she hung up and laughed. Laughed. She told her friend Denise that Grandma was such an easy mark and good for at least $500. We're not losing the apartment. The electric bill is paid. She wanted money for something else. The entries continued, each one a small knife to Dorothy's heart. August 22nd, 2024, I told Mom I got accepted to the college early program. She didn't even congratulate me. She just said, "Great, now we can get your grandmother to buy you a car." When I said I didn't need a car, that I could take the bus, she got really angry, said I was ungrateful, that I didn't understand how hard she works for me. September 10th, 2024. Found out Mom's been telling people at church that Grandma refuses to help us, that she's selfish with her money. Mrs. Patterson told me she asked Grandma about it and Grandma didn't even know what she was talking about. I wanted to defend Grandma, but I'm scared. I'm scared of what Mom will do if I don't go along with her stories. October 8th, 2024. Mom came home at 2 a.m. I heard her crying in her room. I went to check on her and found casino chips in her purse. She's gambling again. She promised after the divorce she'd stop, but she's doing it again. All that money from Grandma, she's not spending it on me. She's losing it at Prairie Meadows. November 20th, 2024. I don't want the car. I don't want any of this. I just want Mom to stop lying. I want Grandma to stop getting hurt. I want to live somewhere where I don't have to walk on eggshells, wondering what mood Mom will be in, what story she's told this week, who she's manipulating today. December 23rd, 2024, Mom made me go with her to Grandma's house today. She made me stand there while she demanded $18,000 for a car I don't even want. I wanted to scream, "I don't want it! Leave Grandma alone!" But I couldn't. I was too scared. Grandma looked at me and asked what I wanted, and I couldn't speak. I'm the worst granddaughter in the world. I let her think I was part of this. Dorothy couldn't read any more through her tears. She looked up at Lily, who was watching her with red, swollen eyes. Why didn't you tell someone? Dorothy's voice cracked. Who would I tell? She's my mother, and she always makes it sound so reasonable, like she's the victim, like everyone else is being cruel to us. Lily wiped her face with her sleeve. But I can't do it anymore, Grandma. I can't watch her destroy you. I can't be her excuse anymore. Dorothy set the journal aside and moved to sit beside Lily, pulling her into a hug. The girl collapsed against her, sobbing. I want to ask you something, Dorothy said quietly, stroking Lily's hair. And I need you to answer honestly. If you could choose where to live, where would you choose? Lily pulled back, looking at her grandmother with Thomas's eyes, clear despite the tears. Here, with you, even if it meant fighting Mom in court, even if it meant she hated me. She won't hate you. She will, but I don't care anymore. Lily's voice strengthened. I'm 16. In Iowa, I can petition the court about custody preferences. I looked it up. If you're willing to fight for me, Grandma, I'm willing to fight too. Dorothy thought about Thomas's letter, about the pattern of enabling she'd fallen into, about the choice between enabling Rebecca's destruction and saving Lily from being destroyed along with her. It wasn't really a choice at all. We'll do this right, Dorothy said firmly. Legally. Carefully. But yes, I'll fight for you, Lily. Lily threw her arms around her grandmother and held on like she was drowning, and Dorothy was solid ground. Thank you for not giving up on me, Lily whispered. Never, Dorothy promised. Not ever. After Lily left, promising to text when she got safely to Jennifer's house, Dorothy sat alone with the journal and cried for the granddaughter who'd been carrying this weight for months, for the daughter who'd become someone she didn't recognize, for the family that was fracturing beyond repair. Then she dried her tears, picked up her phone, and called the number on Margaret Sullivan's business card. It was time to stop being a victim. It was time to fight back. Margaret Sullivan's law office occupied the second floor of a renovated Victorian house on Main Street. Dorothy climbed the stairs slowly on January 6th, her heart pounding with each step. She'd never hired an attorney before. Thomas had handled the house closing. Their wills had been done by a family friend. This felt different, adversarial, final. The receptionist, a young woman with kind eyes, smiled at her. Mrs. Ford? Margaret's expecting you. Go right in. Margaret Sullivan was not what Dorothy had expected. She'd pictured someone stern and austere. Instead, she found a woman in her mid-50s with laugh lines around her eyes and reading glasses perched on top of her head. Mrs. Ford, please sit. Margaret gestured to a comfortable chair. Can I get you coffee? Water? Water, please. Once they were settled, Margaret pulled out a legal pad. The bank's fraud specialist, Tom Henderson, gave me a brief overview, but I'd like to hear the full story from you. Start wherever feels right. Dorothy started with Christmas, then went back to the beginning. 2 years of requests, escalation, the ultimatum. She showed Margaret the spreadsheet, the Facebook screenshots, the forged power of attorney, and finally, Lily's journal. Margaret read the journal entries in silence, her expression growing darker with each page. When she finished, she set it down carefully and removed her glasses. Mrs. Ford, I'm going to be very direct with you. What your daughter has done constitutes several crimes: fraud, attempted theft, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. You could press criminal charges and she'd likely face jail time. Dorothy's hands twisted in her lap. I don't want her in jail. I want Lily safe and my finances protected. I understand, but I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. Margaret leaned forward. What's your real goal here? Not what you think you should want. What do you actually want? Dorothy thought about Thomas's letter, about Lily's tears, about Rebecca at 8 years old, radiant with joy over a bicycle. I want Lily free from her mother's manipulation. I want Rebecca to get help for her gambling addiction, even if she hates me for forcing it. And I want legal protection so this never happens again. She paused. And maybe I want Rebecca to face consequences for the first time in her life, because I'm realizing I've been protecting her from them since she was little. Margaret nodded slowly. That's honest. Good. Here's what I recommend. She outlined a strategy. Emergency custody petition for Lily. Restraining order if Rebecca escalated. Financial protection orders. And criminal charges held in reserve as leverage. The custody case is strong, Margaret said. Lily's 16, which means the court will heavily weigh her preferences. Add in her journal, the evidence of financial abuse, your stable home environment versus Rebecca's gambling addiction, and I'd say we have an 80% chance of success. What about the other 20%? Rebecca fights dirty. She'll make accusations that you're mentally incompetent, that you're turning Lily against her, that you're motivated by revenge rather than Lily's welfare. We need to be prepared for that. Dorothy thought about the Christmas ultimatum, the forged documents, the fake therapy session that was surely coming. I'm prepared. This will cost you. My retainer is $5,000. The case could run another $3,000 to $5,000 depending on how hard Rebecca fights. Dorothy thought of the emergency fund Thomas had left her, the money she'd been slowly depleting with gifts to Rebecca. She'd checked the balance that morning, $6,200 remaining. I have the money. Margaret studied her. You understand that once we start this, there's no going back? Your relationship with Rebecca will likely be permanently damaged. It's already damaged. She damaged it when she chose to see me as an ATM instead of her mother. Dorothy met Margaret's eyes. My husband left me that emergency money for emergencies. Saving my granddaughter from my daughter's addiction qualifies. Margaret smiled, small, sad, but approving. All right then, let's save Lily. The knock came on January 10th at 4:15 p.m. Dorothy had been expecting it. Margaret had warned her that Rebecca would make a move once she realized Dorothy was serious about boundaries. What she hadn't expected was the entourage. Through the peephole, Dorothy saw Rebecca flanked by two people. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit and a woman about Rebecca's age carrying a leather portfolio. Dorothy's stomach tightened. She pulled out her phone and texted Marcus. She's here with people, recording everything. She opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. Mom! Rebecca's smile was brilliantly false. This is Dr. Nathan Price, a family therapist, and Diane Kowalski, a professional mediator. I thought it might help if we had some professional guidance to work through our misunderstanding. I didn't agree to any mediation, Dorothy said calmly. Dr. Price stepped forward, his voice professionally soothing. Mrs. Ford, I understand there's been conflict. Family disputes are always difficult, but with proper mediation, we can find common ground. May we come in? Just for a conversation. No commitment required. No. The single word landed like a slap. Rebecca's mask slipped for just a second, a flash of anger before the sugary smile returned. Mom, you won't even talk to us? That's exactly the problem. You've become so closed off. I have legal representation, Dorothy interrupted. Any mediation would be arranged through proper channels, not ambush visits. Diane opened her portfolio, pulling out papers. We actually have preliminary mediation agreements prepared. If you could just sign, we can schedule a formal session. Stop. Marcus appeared beside Dorothy, his 6'2" frame filling the doorway. Dorothy hadn't heard his car pull up. He must have broken every speed limit to get here so fast. My mother isn't signing anything without her attorney present. His voice was steel. Who hired you? I did, Rebecca said quickly. Because someone needs to be the adult here. Mom's being completely unreasonable. Mom's protecting herself from someone who tried to forge her signature to access her bank accounts. Marcus's tone was flat, factual. Want to discuss that with your therapist? Dr. Price's professional smile flickered. Family dynamics are complex. Sometimes elderly parents become confused about financial matters, and children naturally step in to help. My mother isn't confused. Daniel appeared on Dorothy's other side. He must have driven straight from the airport. She's being financially exploited, and you're part of it. Dorothy felt a surge of love for her sons, standing like bodyguards on either side of her. Rebecca's composure cracked. You turned them against me, my own brothers. We turned ourselves against you when you tried to steal from our mother, Marcus said. Dorothy took control. Dr. Price, Ms. Kowalski, how much did my daughter pay you for this visit? Dr. Price's smile froze. Nothing yet, Diane admitted, glancing at Rebecca. Rebecca said you'd cover the mediation costs once we helped you see reason. I make $2,000 a month from Social Security. I've given Rebecca $14,500 over the past 2 years while living on almost nothing. There's no money to take. Dorothy looked at Rebecca. You lied to them, just like you lied to me. The silence was deafening. Dr. Price and Diane exchanged glances. Diane quietly closed her portfolio. Mrs. Ford, Dr. Price said stiffly, I apologize. We were clearly given incomplete information. He turned to Rebecca. Ms. Ford, we'll be sending you a bill for today's consultation. Don't contact us again. They walked to their car quickly, professional dignity in tatters. Rebecca stood alone on the porch, trembling with rage. You're destroying our family. No, Rebecca. You did that when you chose manipulation over honesty. Dorothy's voice was steady despite her racing heart. You forged legal documents. You attempted fraud. You used your daughter as a weapon against me. Lily will never forgive you for this. Lily's the one who told me about the babysitting money you stole from her. She's the one who wants to live with me instead of you. She's tired of being your bargaining chip. Rebecca's face went white. She told you? She gave me her journal. Every lie you told. Every manipulation. Every time you used her to guilt me into giving you money for your gambling addiction. I don't have a gambling... Prairie Meadows Casino. 3 times a week. Helen saw you there. Your Facebook posts show you there. Lily found casino chips in your purse. Dorothy felt tears threaten but forced them back. Stop lying, Rebecca, please. Just stop. Rebecca's legs seemed to give out. She sank onto the porch steps, her designer coat dragging in the snow. For a long moment, no one moved. Then something in Rebecca broke. Not the manipulative tears Dorothy had seen 100 times before. Real tears. Ugly, harsh, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere deep and damaged. I can't stop, Rebecca whispered, her voice raw. I tried, Mom. I went to Gamblers Anonymous twice last year, but I can't stop. Dorothy looked at her sons. Marcus's jaw was tight, but Daniel's expression had softened slightly. They both stepped back, giving her space to choose. Dorothy moved slowly down the steps and sat beside her daughter, not touching, just present. Why didn't you tell me? Rebecca laughed. Bitter, broken. Because you'd look at me the way you're looking at me now, like I'm something broken that needs to be fixed. You're my daughter. You're not broken, you're sick. It's the same thing. Rebecca wiped her face with her sleeve, makeup smearing. I owe $47,000, Mom, to people who don't take payment plans. That's why I needed the car. I was going to sell it, use the money to pay them off, buy myself some time. Dorothy's heart clenched. Who are these people? Does it matter? Rebecca looked at her mother with devastated eyes. I've destroyed everything. My marriage, my relationship with you, Lily's trust. All because I can't walk past a casino without feeling like the next hand, the next spin, the next game will be the one that fixes everything. For just a moment, Dorothy saw the little girl who'd cried when her goldfish died, who'd brought home every stray cat in the neighborhood, who'd sat by Thomas's hospital bed reading to him during his stroke recovery. I can get you help. Real help. Treatment programs, therapy, debt counseling. Rebecca's expression hardened. In exchange for what? Giving up Lily? Signing away my rights? In exchange for nothing. Because you're my daughter and I love you. But you're still taking Lily away from me. Dorothy took a breath. I'm protecting Lily from being used as a shield for your addiction. That's not the same thing. Yes, it is. Rebecca stood abruptly, the vulnerability vanishing behind familiar anger. You can dress it up however you want, but you're choosing her over me. You always do. Perfect Marcus, responsible Daniel, and Lily. Sweet, innocent Lily. And me? I'm just the screw-up who needs to be managed. Rebecca, how long did Dad go to AA? 2 years? And you stood by him. You never threatened to take us away. You never hired lawyers or made him prove he deserved his family. Her voice rose. But me? One mistake and you're done. You've given up on me. Dorothy stood too, meeting her daughter's eyes. Your father never forged my signature. He never used our children as emotional hostages. He never demanded I bankrupt myself to enable his drinking. He took responsibility and got help because he wanted to, not because a court forced him. So that's it? I either become perfect or I lose everything? You either get help and stop using your daughter as a weapon, or yes, you lose custody of Lily. That's the choice. Dorothy's voice broke. I'm not giving up on you, Rebecca. I'm refusing to enable you anymore. There's a difference. Rebecca stared at her mother, emotions warring across her face. Grief, rage, desperation, pride. Finally, she settled on cold fury. Fine, but you'll never see Lily again. I'm still her mother, and I have rights. She turned and walked to her car with as much dignity as she could muster. Before getting in, she looked back. I hope protecting your precious money was worth losing your daughter. The tires squealed as she drove away. Dorothy stood in the snow, Marcus and Daniel flanking her again. She'll escalate, Daniel said quietly. I know. Are you okay? Marcus asked. Dorothy thought about it. Her daughter hated her. Her family was shattered. She was about to enter a legal battle that would cost everything she had left. No, she said honestly. But I'm doing the right thing. That has to be enough. The next month was a blur of legal motions, certified letters, and escalating threats. January 15th, Margaret filed the emergency custody petition. Rebecca was served with papers at her apartment. She responded with 47 text messages in 6 hours, ranging from pleading to threatening to incoherent rage. January 18th, Adult Protective Services appeared at Dorothy's door following an anonymous report claiming Dorothy was self-neglecting and mentally incompetent. The social worker, Patricia Mendoza, took one look at Dorothy's clean, organized home and her clearly sharp mind and apologized. Mrs. Ford, whoever reported you wasted our time. You're obviously competent. Patricia's expression was knowing. This was retaliatory, wasn't it? My daughter doesn't want me getting custody of my granddaughter. Patricia made notes. This actually helps your case. False APS reports are taken seriously in custody disputes. January 22nd. Rebecca hired her first lawyer, Stephen Marsh, from a budget legal clinic. He lasted 3 days before withdrawing from the case after seeing the evidence of fraud. January 28th. Rebecca's second lawyer, Jennifer Torres, filed a motion claiming Dorothy was attempting parental alienation and was mentally unfit to care for a teenager. Margaret countered with bank records, the forged power of attorney, and Lily's journal. Jennifer Torres withdrew from the case on February 2nd. February 3rd, Rebecca, now representing herself, made a last-ditch effort on Facebook. Heartbroken that my own mother is trying to steal my daughter. She's convinced Lily that I'm a bad parent because I'm struggling financially. Praying for healing and for the truth to come out in court. If you believe in family and forgiveness, please keep us in your thoughts. The post got 23 likes and dozens of supportive comments from people who didn't know the full story. But the Cedar Falls community knew Dorothy. Helen Patterson commented publicly, Rebecca, your mother has been supporting you financially for 2 years while living on $2,000 a month. She's not the problem here. Get help. The tide of public opinion shifted. Rebecca deleted the post within hours. February 8th, Lily was subpoenaed to testify. Rebecca showed up at Jennifer Walsh's house demanding to speak to her daughter. Jennifer refused to let her in and called the police. No charges were filed, but another incident report went into the court file. That night, Lily called Dorothy crying. She tried to coach me, Grandma. Told me what to say in court, how to act. She recorded herself crying and said if I didn't back her up, I'd be responsible for destroying our family. Did you record any of it? Margaret had taught them to document everything. On my phone, the whole thing. February 10th, The court date was set for February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Dorothy spent the days before the hearing preparing with Margaret, reviewing testimony, steeling herself for what was coming. Marcus and Daniel both took time off work to be there. Helen organized a prayer circle at church. The night before the hearing, Dorothy couldn't sleep. She sat in her kitchen at 2 a.m., drinking chamomile tea, staring at a photo of Rebecca at 5 years old, gap-toothed, grinning, holding a dandelion like it was the most precious thing in the world. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the photograph. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you from yourself, but I won't sacrifice Lily to prove I love you." She thought about Thomas, about his battle with alcohol, about the night he'd come home after his first AA meeting and told her, "You saved my life by refusing to enable me." Maybe someday Rebecca would understand. Maybe not. Either way, tomorrow would change everything. February 14th dawned cold and clear. Dorothy dressed in her best navy dress, the one she wore to funerals and important occasions. Marcus and Daniel picked her up at 8 a.m. None of them spoke much during the drive to the courthouse. The family court building was an imposing brick structure that had always intimidated Dorothy. Today it felt like walking into battle. Margaret met them in the lobby, professional and calm. "Remember, Dorothy? Answer questions directly. Stay calm and trust the evidence. Rebecca's going to try to provoke you. Don't let her." The courtroom was smaller than Dorothy expected, more like a conference room than the dramatic spaces she'd seen on TV. Judge Patricia Morrison sat behind the bench, a stern-looking woman in her early 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Rebecca arrived 10 minutes late with her third lawyer, a young man fresh out of law school named Brandon Hayes, who looked terrified. Lily sat in the hallway with a court-appointed advocate, waiting to be called. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Morrison reviewed the case file, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "This is a petition by minor Lily Ford, age 16, requesting a change in primary custody from Mother Rebecca Ford to paternal grandmother Dorothy Ford. Ms. Ford, you're contesting this petition?" Brandon Hayes stood, his voice shaking slightly. "Yes, Your Honor. My client maintains that this petition is the result of the grandmother's manipulation and interference in the parent-child relationship." Judge Morrison's eyebrow rose. "I've read your filing, counsel. I've also read Mrs. Ford's comprehensive response, including exhibits documenting financial exploitation, attempted fraud, and emotional manipulation. Let's proceed with testimony and see if your claims hold water." The next 3 hours were brutal. Margaret presented the evidence methodically. Bank statements showing the $14,500 in gifts versus Dorothy's $2,000 monthly income. The forged power of attorney with security camera footage from the bank showing Rebecca attempting to add herself to Dorothy's accounts. Facebook posts proving Rebecca's luxury spending while claiming poverty. Text messages threatening to withhold Lily unless Dorothy provided money. The casino photographs and witness statements from Helen. Brandon Hayes objected repeatedly, but Judge Morrison overruled him each time. "Counsel, unless you have evidence contradicting these documents, I'm going to allow them." When it was Rebecca's turn to testify, she tried to present herself as a devoted single mother struggling against unfair circumstances. "I admit I made mistakes, Your Honor, but I was desperate, trying to provide for my daughter alone with no help from her father, minimal support from my family." "Ms. Ford," Judge Morrison interrupted, "according to these bank records, your mother gave you over $14,000 in 2 years while living on a fixed income of $2,000 per month. That doesn't suggest minimal support." "I needed more than she could give. Is that a crime?" "No, but attempted fraud is." Judge Morrison held up the forged document. "You tried to forge your mother's signature to access her bank accounts. Care to explain?" Rebecca's lawyer whispered urgently to her. She ignored him. "I was trying to help her. She's getting older, making bad financial decisions. I thought if I could manage her money properly, without her knowledge or consent, she would have said no if I asked." "Exactly." Judge Morrison's voice was ice. "Ms. Ford, that's called theft." Margaret cross-examined Rebecca with surgical precision. "Ms. Ford, On November 28th, your mother gave you $600 for an emergency car repair. That same night, you posted photos from a concert on Facebook. Front row seats. Those tickets cost approximately $250 each. Where did that money come from? Rebecca faltered. A friend bought those tickets. Which friend? I don't remember. Convenient. Margaret pulled up another exhibit. December 15th. You told your mother you couldn't afford Lily's winter coat. That same week, you posted a photo of a designer handbag, still with tags, captioned, "Early Christmas present to myself." That handbag retails for $800. Where did that money come from? That's none of your business. Your Honor, I'd like to submit into evidence Ms. Ford's loyalty card statement from Prairie Meadows Casino, which shows she visited the facility 47 times in the past 6 months, with total wagering of over $32,000. The courtroom went silent. Rebecca's face drained of color. How did you get that? Subpoena, which you could have avoided by being honest. Then came Lily's testimony, the moment Dorothy had been dreading. Her granddaughter walked to the witness stand looking small and frightened but determined. The court advocate, Sarah Chen, sat nearby for support. Brandon Hayes tried to be gentle. Lily, you love your mother, don't you? Yes. And she's always taken care of you? Lily paused. She's tried to. What does that mean? It means she loves me, but she's sick, and her sickness makes her do things that hurt people. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Lily, I want to hear from you directly. Why do you want to live with your grandmother? Lily's hands twisted in her lap. She glanced at Rebecca, then at Dorothy, then back at the judge. Because at Mom's house, I never know what to expect. Sometimes she's wonderful. She makes me breakfast, helps with homework, acts like a normal mom. But other times, she uses me. Lily's voice shook but didn't break. She tells Grandma I need things I don't need so she can get money. She takes my babysitting money and says I owe her. She makes me stand there while she manipulates Grandma, and I can't say anything because I'm scared of what will happen if I do. Scared how? Not physically. She's never hit me. But emotionally, she makes me feel like everything's my fault, like I'm the reason she struggles, like I'm a burden instead of her daughter. Tears streamed down Lily's face. At Grandma's house, I'm just allowed to be a kid. I don't have to manage her moods or enable her lies or feel guilty for existing. Rebecca stood up. That's not true. I never made you feel— Sit down, Ms. Ford, Judge Morrison ordered. She's lying. My mother turned her against me. Ms. Ford, sit down or I'll hold you in contempt. Rebecca collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. Lily continued, pulling out her journal. I started writing everything down because I thought I was going crazy. I thought maybe I was remembering wrong or being unfair. But reading it now, she opened to a page. May I read something? Judge Morrison nodded. Lily's voice was steady. Mom told Grandma we were being evicted and needed $900 for rent. We're not being evicted. The rent is paid. She wanted the money for something else. I don't know what. But I watched Grandma write that check and I saw the fear in her eyes, and I hated myself for not saying anything. I'm not a daughter to either of them. I'm a tool, a weapon, a bargaining chip. I just want to be a person. The courtroom was silent except for Rebecca's harsh breathing. Judge Morrison removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. Mr. Hayes, does your client have any evidence that contradicts any of this? Brandon Hayes shuffled papers helplessly. Your Honor, my client believes as an evidence, counsel. Judge Morrison turned to Lily. Lily, if I grant this petition, you understand your mother will still have visitation rights? You'll still see her? Yes, ma'am. And that's acceptable to you? Yes. I love her. I just can't live with her until she gets help. The judge made notes, then looked at Rebecca directly. Ms. Ford, I'm looking at evidence that you attempted to forge your mother's signature to access her bank accounts. That you demanded she purchase an $18,000 vehicle despite knowing her income is $2,000 monthly. That you've extracted over $14,000 through manipulation and guilt. That you've threatened to withhold access to your daughter unless your mother complied with financial demands. And now your own daughter is telling me she feels used and frightened." Rebecca opened her mouth, but Judge Morrison held up a hand. "I've been on this bench for 20 years. I know the difference between struggling parents and exploitation. This is textbook financial abuse of an elderly parent with a minor child caught in the crossfire." She paused. "I'm granting the petition. Primary custody is transferred to Dorothy Ford, effective immediately." Rebecca made a sound like a wounded animal. "Furthermore," Judge Morrison continued, "you'll have supervised visitation every other weekend, contingent on completion of a court-ordered program addressing gambling addiction and parenting. You're also ordered to repay Mrs. Ford the sum of $14,500 at a rate of $200 monthly." "I can't afford $200 a month." "Then you shouldn't have taken $14,000 from a woman living on $2,000. Judge Morrison's voice was steel. "Additionally, based on the attempted fraud at Cedar Falls Community Bank, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal charges." Rebecca stood, shaking. Mom, please. Tell her you don't want this." Dorothy stood slowly. Every eye in the courtroom turned to her. "I want my granddaughter safe," Dorothy said quietly. "I want you to get help. And I want you to understand that love doesn't mean enabling destruction. I'm your daughter. And Lily's my granddaughter. She deserves better than being raised by someone who sees relationships as transactions." Dorothy's voice broke. "Maybe someday you'll understand. Until then, we're done." Judge Morrison gavelled. "Court is adjourned. Mrs. Ford, Lily will be released into your custody immediately. Ms. Ford, you'll receive notice about your visitation schedule and required programs within 72 hours. As the courtroom emptied, Rebecca sat alone at the defendant's table, her lawyer awkwardly packing his briefcase. Lily ran to Dorothy and buried her face in her grandmother's shoulder. Marcus and Daniel embraced them both. Dorothy looked back once at her daughter. Rebecca was staring at her hands, tears dripping onto the table, completely alone. Dorothy felt the familiar pull, the maternal instinct to comfort, to fix, to save. But Lily was holding on to her like a lifeline, and sometimes saving one person meant letting another fall. She turned away and walked out of the courtroom into February sunlight. The supervised visitation center was a cheerful room with bright murals and comfortable furniture, designed to feel less institutional than it was. Dorothy had driven Lily to the March 1st appointment, the first since the court ruling. Rebecca arrived exactly on time, a good sign. She looked different. Hair pulled back simply, minimal makeup, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of designer clothes. In her hands was a single wrapped gift, modest-sized. Rose Martinez, the court-appointed supervisor, greeted them warmly. "Hi, Rebecca." "Hi, Lily." "Dorothy, you can wait in the lobby. I'll come get you when the hour's up." Dorothy squeezed Lily's hand. "You okay?" Lily nodded, nervous but willing. Through the observation window, one-way glass that Rose could monitor but provided privacy from the lobby, Dorothy watched her daughter and granddaughter sit at opposite ends of a couch. Awkward silence stretched between them. Finally, Rebecca spoke, her voice so quiet Dorothy could barely hear through the glass. "I started the program, Gamblers Anonymous, twice a week, plus individual therapy." She laughed, bitter but not cruel. "It's harder than I thought it would be. Admitting that I have a problem, that I hurt people. Are you really trying?" Lily's voice was careful. "I'm 12 days clean from gambling, longest streak in 2 years. Rebecca looked at her daughter. "I know that's not much. I know I destroyed your trust, but I'm trying." They talked about small things, Lily's classes, an upcoming science fair project, a movie Lily wanted to see. Normal conversation, tentative but real. Rebecca slid the gift across the coffee table. "I got you something. Nothing expensive, just I thought you might like it." Lily unwrapped it carefully. A book, Wild from Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail by Cheryl Strayed. "I read it in therapy," Rebecca said. "It's about someone who was completely lost and found a way back. I thought maybe it would mean something." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Mom. I'm sorry." Rebecca's voice cracked. For everything. For using you. For lying. For making you feel like you weren't enough just as you are. You didn't deserve any of it. I know. They didn't hug. It was too soon for that. But when the hour ended and Rose called Dorothy back, Lily looked lighter somehow. As they walked to the car, Lily said, "She's different. Not fixed, but different." "Recovery isn't linear," Dorothy said gently. "She'll have good days and bad days." "I know, but at least she's trying." At the car, Rebecca appeared in the doorway, watching them leave. Dorothy made eye contact with her daughter. Rebecca mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." Dorothy nodded once. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement. It was a start. August 2025 arrived with Iowa humidity and the promise of Lily's senior year. Dorothy's backyard was full of people. Marcus and his family visiting from Minnesota, Daniel and his wife up from Arizona, Helen and several church friends, Jennifer Walsh and her daughter, and Rebecca. She'd completed 6 months of court-ordered treatment. Her visitation had increased to unsupervised weekend afternoons. She'd gotten a job as a cashier at Target, moved into a modest studio apartment, and was slowly, painfully paying back the restitution. She still went to GA meetings 3 times a week. She was 60 days clean from gambling, her longest streak since the divorce. Progress was fragile, uncertain, but real. Dorothy watched from the porch as Rebecca helped Lily set up the volleyball net, their conversation easy, laughing at some private joke. It wasn't the relationship they'd had before. That was gone, broken beyond repair. But maybe they were building something new, something honest. "You did good, Mom," Marcus said, appearing beside her with a glass of lemonade. "I don't know about that." "You saved Lily, and you gave Rebecca a chance to save herself." He clinked his glass against hers. "That's all you could do." After everyone had eaten, hamburgers on the grill, Helen's famous potato salad, Dorothy's chocolate chip cookies, Rebecca approached Dorothy with something in her hands. An envelope. Old, yellowed. "Lily found this in some of Grandpa's things you gave her. She thought I should read it." Dorothy took the envelope. Thomas's handwriting. "For Rebecca, when she needs it." "You knew about this?" Rebecca asked. "I found mine on Christmas Eve 2 years ago. I didn't know he'd written one for you, too." Rebecca's eyes were red. "He knew I'd screw everything up. He wrote this 20 years ago, and he knew. He knew you struggled. That's different. He said I have the family's addictive gene, that I measure my worth by external things instead of internal ones." Rebecca wiped her eyes. "He also said I was loved not for what I provide, but for who I am. I forgot that. Or maybe I never believed it." Dorothy wanted to hug her daughter, but wasn't sure if she was allowed. Rebecca made the choice, stepping forward and wrapping her arms around her mother. Brief, awkward, but genuine. "I wasted so much time," Rebecca whispered. "Time isn't wasted if you learn from it," Dorothy said. "Your father taught me that." They separated. Rebecca glanced at Lily, who was laughing with her cousins, looking lighter than she had in years. "She's happy here," Rebecca said. "She is. I want her to stay, even after the court order expires. I'm not—" Rebecca took a shaky breath. "I'm not ready to be her primary parent again. Maybe I never will be, but I can be her mom in smaller ways, the ways that don't hurt her." Dorothy studied her daughter, thinner, tired, but clearer-eyed than she'd been in years. "That's very brave. It's practical. I'm 93 days clean, Mom. That's good, but I'm 1 bad day away from relapse. Lily deserves stability. You give her that." Rebecca managed a small smile. "Besides, she told me you're teaching her to make Grandpa's chocolate chip cookies. That's a legacy worth more than anything I could buy her." December 24th, 2025, 1 year after the Christmas ultimatum. Dorothy's kitchen smelled like cinnamon and butter again, but this time she wasn't alone. Lily was rolling out cookie dough, humming along to Christmas carols on the radio. Rebecca was carefully cutting shapes with cookie cutters, working slowly, present in the moment. It wasn't perfect. Rebecca still went to therapy twice a week. She still struggled with the urge to gamble every time she saw an advertisement or passed a casino. She still had days where the shame of what she'd done threatened to drown her. But she showed up. She kept showing up. "Grandma," Lily said suddenly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Did you forgive Mom?" Dorothy paused, considering. Rebecca had frozen, cookie cutter halfway through the dough, waiting for the answer. "I forgave your mother for being human, for being sick, for making mistakes in ways that hurt people she loved." Dorothy met Rebecca's eyes. "But I'll never forget what happened, and I'll never stop protecting you. That's what love with boundaries looks like." Rebecca set down the cookie cutter. "I don't deserve this family." "Deserve has nothing to do with it," Dorothy said firmly. "You're my daughter, but you're earning back trust step by step, and that matters more than deserve." "I'm 9 months clean," Rebecca said quietly. "Got promoted to assistant manager at work last week. Paid back $1,800 of what I owe." "I'm proud of you," Dorothy said and meant it. The three of them worked in companionable silence, the kitchen filling with the smell of baking cookies, the radio playing Silent Night. Later, after the cookies were done and Rebecca had left, she still wasn't staying for Christmas dinner, but maybe next year. Lily curled up next to Dorothy on the couch. "Are we going to be okay?" Lily asked. Dorothy thought about Thomas's letter, about the year they'd survived, about Rebecca's fragile recovery and Lily's resilience and the family they were rebuilding piece by piece. "Yes," Dorothy said. "Not perfect, but okay." Outside, snow began to fall, soft, quiet, covering Cedar Falls in white. Inside, the Christmas tree lights blinked gently, and for the first time in 2 years, Dorothy's house felt like a home instead of a battleground. Recovery wasn't a destination. It was a daily choice. And today, everyone had chosen to keep trying. That was enough.